Now, next component of stimulus variation is change in interaction style. As we know, teaching is an interactive act. In the classroom, communication between teacher and student goes on constantly as responsive acts. This communication is called interaction. The interaction is broadly two types, one verbal and second non-verbal. The verbal interaction means when there is a communication through exchange of talking, and non-verbal communication means when there is a communication through gestures without talking. In the classroom situation, there are three types of styles of interaction, such as number 1, teacher classroom interaction, number 2, teacher student interaction, and number 3, student student interaction. We shall now discuss these styles of interaction in detail. First styles of interaction, that is teacher classroom interaction. In these styles of interaction, a teacher communicates to the whole class. This is a single channel interaction like lecturing, where only teacher talks in the classroom. In this interaction, only a teacher is active and all students are passive listeners only. Whereas second style of interaction, that is teacher student interaction. In this style of interaction, a teacher sometimes interact with the class as a whole, sometimes with a subgroup in the class, and while at others interact with the individual students in the classroom. The third style of interaction is student student interaction. In these styles of interaction, a teacher puts a question to one student and without commenting, he redirects the question to another student. In this interaction, the teacher encourages student student interaction and involves them in the discussion. In this interaction, all students are active and only a teacher is passive listener. If one style of interaction continues for a long time in the classroom, a certain amount of monotony is bound to occur. Therefore, in order to secure and sustain the attention of the students, the teacher should introduce variation in the interaction styles. Now, the next component of stimulus variation is pausing. Pausing stands for introducing deliberate silence during teacher talk. Silence has a language of its own, and if it is used effectively, it helps in securing and sustaining students' attention. The purposes of pause are: number 1, to secure the attention of the students, to give time for structuring an answer to teacher's question, and number 3, to give time for assimilation of ideas and concepts. A short pause before saying something important is an effective way of attracting students' attention. The pause of 4 seconds duration is considered appropriate for this purpose. The pause should be neither too short nor too long. Therefore, in order to sustain students' attention in the class, the teacher should introduce certain pauses during his teaching and before and after asking a question. Now, the next component of stimulus variation is change in sensory focus. The moment, gestures and change in voice of teachers secure students' attention. The verbal statements and gestures together are known as verbal cum gesture focusing. This is also known as sensory focus. The sensory focuses are from listening to looking, from reading to writing, from speaking to doing, from teacher talk to blackboard writing, and from blackboard writing to demonstrating, etc. These sensory focuses maintain the level of attention and motivation of the students. Now, there are three types of sensory focusing. Number one, oral to visual focusing. Number two, oral to oral visual focusing. And number three, visual to oral visual focusing. Let us discuss these types of sensory focusing in details. First sensory focus is oral to visual focusing. In oral to visual focusing, the teacher changes the focus of attention from verbal stimulus, that is oral to visual stimulus. For example, while explaining a point, if the teacher shows a chart, that is switching from oral to visual, and after showing the chart, a teacher again starts speaking, that is switching from visual to oral mode. Now, second sensory focus is oral to oral visual focusing. In this case, the teacher can shift focus from the verbal stimulus, that is oral to audio, and then visual stimulus, and vice versa. For example, if a teacher has just introduced the topic and is explaining the meaning of concept, the teacher then shows a chart and using it explain the parts of the concept and ask the student to observe the chart, that is visual. He is using audio to audio visual switching. And the third one, visual to oral visual focusing. In this case, the teacher can shift the focus from visual stimulus to audio visual stimulus and vice versa. For example, the teacher can demonstrate experiments and then the teacher can explain the phenomena with the help of a diagram. Therefore, change in the shifting of sensory focus influences the student's attention. Now, the last component of stimulus variation is student movement. The teacher can change the focus of attention of the students by involving them in physically doing something. The teacher can involve the students in experiments, handling apparatus, or in demonstrating. Therefore, the involvement of students help to sustain their interest in the teaching learning process. So, in this section, we have discussed the meaning of stimulus variation skills and the following component of stimulus variation skills. They are teacher movement, teacher gestures, change in voice, focusing, change in interaction style, pausing, changes in sensory focuses, and student movement.